Through your sacrifice, the king returned, entire, unbroken, and ready to reclaim his throne. You held faith that Avalon's fate still turned with him, that one last rising could bring balance to the broken land. Now he rules again, and the world bends to the weight of your choice, for salvation or for ruin. You gave everything to restore the king, and your journey ended with his return. Closing your eyes upon the sight of Arthur's triumph, you felt no regret, only the certainty that your final choice had been the right one. You brought down the cycle with steady hands and no promise of glory. You did not claim the throne. You buried it. There is no king now, only the truth you made and the path others may follow. You had no answers, only scars and the will to keep walking. And sometimes that was enough to keep others going too. You took Arthur's power for yourself. Whatever drove you, need, ambition, or will alone, the strength of a king was now yours to command. Maybe you weren't ready. Maybe nobody ever is. But you decided to try. It's a heavy thing, trying to do right where others have failed. Still, you stepped forward, carrying the soul and every choice that brought you here. You ruled not as Arthur reborn, but as yourself, flawed, resolute, untested. Avalon changed beneath your hand, and history will decide what that truly meant. You uncovered the truth buried in the weirdness and used it to return Arthur to where he truly belonged, ending the cycle and securing Avalon's future. The fore-dweller mother's heart, no longer bleeding, sealed the wound in the world, and with it, ended the Red Death that had stolen so many lives. And so, the legend of King Arthur began to fade. In its place grew a stronger Avalon, where the weirdness was no longer feared, but understood. You gave the soul to another, not to escape its weight, but because you believed they could carry it. One person, chosen by you, to bear the burden and to shape what comes next. Whatever future rises from their rule will bear your seal, for it was your will that set it in motion. Without the power of Arthur to sustain you, your body fell back into the endless rot of the Red Death. With only a few weeks of life remaining, you withdrew into isolation, finding a quiet place from which to watch the kingdom you had helped forge anew. You gave the soul to another, not to escape its weight, but because you believed they could carry it. One person, chosen by you, to bear the burden and to shape what comes next. Whatever future rises from their rule will bear your seal, for it was your will that set it in motion. Seeing Arthur's power carried by another, you were prepared for your demise. And yet, death did not come. The prophet Kai saw you, knew you, and named a fate few could claim. A life spared when all should have been lost. You entrusted Arthur's soul to Captain Brandon, a leader who built Avalon's future on autonomy, trade, and secular law. As prosperity grew, faith faltered. To many, it was progress, but to the devout, it marked the loss of moral order and the rise of unchecked ambition. You entrusted Arthur's soul to Erfyr, a blacksmith who built a system where everyone worked and no one ruled from above. His reforms reshaped Avalon. But the former elites didn't disappear. They adapted, keeping their influence through quieter, less visible means. You entrusted Arthur's soul to Maggot, a druid who no longer believed Avalon could be saved. With the fleet sealed by Merlin's spell, he devoted himself to breaking it, determined to free the ships and lead those willing back to the homelands. You chose Fearghas to bear Arthur's soul, a man shaped by duty, loyal to the old ways. Order returned to Avalon under his rule, with Camelot once more at the centre, though not all welcomed a future built from the past. You entrusted Arthur's soul to Fionnuala, and under her vision, Avalon embraced the calmed weirdness and the new life it offered. Many accepted the change, merging their flesh with the unknown. But not all followed, and a quiet resistance grew among those who feared what they might lose. You entrusted Arthur's soul to Galahad the Pure, a ruler who saw order not as peace, but as purpose. With Avalon united beneath Camelot's banner, he prepared an expedition to Tuathan, the ancient seat of the fore-dwellers, where the weirdness still waits to be challenged. You entrusted Arthur's soul to Gerfhanra, who moved the capital to Mathar Mines and sought unity through Dal Rita law. But your earlier support for Camelot left tensions unresolved, and before long Avalon was split. A civil war ignited between the old capital and the new. You entrusted Arthur's soul to Gerfhanra, who moved the capital to Mathar Mines and ruled by the principles of the Dal Rita. Many embraced his efforts to unify the land, while others, especially in Camelot, struggled to accept the new centre of power. You entrusted Arthur's soul to One Eye, but your earlier support for Camelot left deep cracks in the foundation of his rule. Divided loyalties turned to open conflict, and Avalon plunged into civil war that even his strength could not contain. You entrusted Arthur's soul to One Eye, who dissolved the Round Table and unified Avalon under the laws of the Dal Rita. For the tribes, it was long overdue recognition. For the capital, a difficult adjustment. Order returned, but not without cost. You entrusted Arthur's soul to Neante, a quiet leader who rebuilt Avalon not with armies, but through care, faith, and timeless service. Her rise brought healing and unity. Yet some watched with unease as a priestess became a ruler, and humility gave way to unchallenged reverence. You entrusted Arthur's soul to Lord Yvain, and under his rule, Avalon found steady ground through open courts and elected knights. The people welcomed a leader who finally listened, though some still looked to the horizon, wondering what might have been if a true king had returned. You entrusted Arthur's soul to Lord Yvain, a descendant of Palamedes, yet too indecisive to inspire those he was meant to lead. The people lost faith, and when he was struck down, few mourned. They only braced themselves for the chaos that followed. You gave Arthur's soul to a beggar, a final insult to fate and to all who sought to shape Avalon's future. With no vision, no throne, and no purpose, the realm unravelled, left to rot in the hands of someone who never asked to rule. You entrusted Arthur's soul to the child of Morrigan, and Avalon was reborn under a rule of absolute control. Some called it salvation, others tyranny, but none could deny that, for better or worse, the realm no longer wavered. Ailey accepted the Red Church's support to keep the hospital running. In time, they pushed her away from the patients, and she was left little more than a maker of potions under their command. Ailey turned to the merchants for support, and for a time the hospital prospered. But when they began charging patients for care, she walked away and opened her own small practice, refusing to serve profit over healing. With Yvain's backing, Ailey secured the hospital's independence. She remained at its head, earning the respect and gratitude of the people she served. When you rose as the new Arthur, Alisa rejoiced. She called herself your queen, though she remained in the safety of the seaside mansion, far from the struggles that shaped Avalon's future. When the Red Death claimed you, Alisa withdrew from the world. Haunted by fear and grief, she lived as a recluse by the sea, choosing isolation over risking another loss. You and Alisa built a quiet life together by the sea. Far from Avalon's struggles, you lived in peace, and for once no legend was written, only days shared in contentment. When your unfaithfulness came to light, Alisa left with a broken heart. In time, her craft and style gained recognition, and she built an independent life, known for her work across Avalon. When you rose as the new Arthur, Beor struggled to accept what you had become. Though the weight of your new role overwhelmed him, he remained quietly by your side, offering his support from a distance. After you fell to the Red Death, Beor withdrew from the world. He claimed he would never give his heart again, carrying your memory in silence for the rest of his days. You and Beor remained together, sharing a quiet life until the end. No great songs were sung of your days, only the simple bond of two souls who chose each other. After your betrayal, Beor left without a word. He swore never to fall in love again, growing old and bitter, much like his former master, Erfyr. Denholm rose swiftly through Camelot's ranks. He was named the new Palamedes, a symbol of order and strength, and became one of the pillars of Avalon's restored rule. When he heard rumors that his son still lived, Denholm abandoned his position and left Camelot behind. He never found what he sought, but he spent the rest of his days chasing the ghost of a family he had lost. Learning the truth at last, Denholm discovered that Van was the son he had lost. They struggled to bridge the years between them, but for the first time, Denholm chose family over duty. When Adal Rita was crowned through your choice, Denholm refused to kneel. He gathered the remnants of Camelot's loyalists, preparing for a long and bitter resistance. Erfyr chose to stay with the people of Kuanact and later joined them on the road to Camelot. There he became one of the community's most respected elders, valued for his wisdom and memory. Many sought him out to hear the old tales of Kuanact, preserving the memory of a vanished home. Erfyr stayed with the people of Kuanact, choosing to share their uncertain future. As trust in Anselm faded, the community became divided, with many calling for Erfyr to take Yvain's place. Ulfr left Kuanact alongside Yvain, despite concerns about his age. His fate remained unknown, but the people admired him for finding purpose at the end of his life, and spoke of him with lasting respect. Fabius remained loyal to the Red Church, and in time, Vetus's scheming was exposed. He rose quickly through the ranks, and many began to speak of him as a future pope. When Vetus revealed Fabius's secret affair with Leal, the church cast him down. He was stripped of rank and sent to the island asylum, serving among the lowest of the Red Priests. Fabius fled with Leal before the church could act. In hiding, they built a quiet life together, raising their child far from the reach of the Red Church. Fabius and Leal disappeared from the Red Church's reach, but their life together soon unravelled. With no child and no cause to unite them, they parted ways, and Fabius faded into obscurity. Fearghas remained captain of the Horns of the South. Under his leadership, the Horns honoured their old traditions and returned under Camelot's banner, securing order along the southern frontier. Fearghas was named the new Galahad the Loyal. With One Eye and Brendan backed by the Dal Rita of the Forlorn Swords, he saw that the South's alliance was strong enough to stand on its own. He urged Camelot to leave the South in peace and turned his attention to securing the rest of Avalon. Fearghas was named the new Galahad the Loyal. With One Eye and Brandon unable to rally the Dal Rita of the Forlorn Swords, the South remained divided. Fearghas prepared Camelot's forces to reclaim the region by strength, determined to restore unity through conquest if necessary. Maggot remained among the people of Kuanact and eventually moved with them to Camelot. There, where druids were forbidden, the community hid him in plain sight. He spent the rest of his life in secrecy, protected by those he had once helped. Maggot chose to remain in Kuanact, and the people stayed with him. Over time, they grew to trust him and often sought his wisdom. In time, he took on an apprentice, planting the first seeds of a new druidic tradition. Maggot left Kuanact alongside Yvain, surprising many who had long considered him harmless and weak. His fate remained unknown, but in time, the people spoke proudly of the last druid, claiming him as one of their own. Neante stayed behind in Kuanact, guiding the people through that. When the time came to leave, she travelled with them to Camelot, building a new life while continuing her work. In time, she became a pillar of the Kuanact community in a foreign land. Neante stayed in Kuanact, and the people remained by her side. Though Anselm held the official title, it was Neante whom the people turned to for guidance, treating her as the true heart of the community. Neante left Kuanact with Yvain, and her fate remained unknown. Yet among the people she once served, tales of her devotion and courage endured, and her name was remembered with respect. With Helmi as the new matron, the Volker returned to their former glory with renewed ferocity, their berserkers filled with an aggression that stirred quiet fear among the other tribes. Among the united tribes of the Dal Rita, the Volker were treated with equal parts awe and mistrust, seeming to teeter closer and closer to madness. The Volker joined the rest of the Dal Rita without a matron and without Mathar's blessing. Even so, their warriors kept the ferocity they had once been famed for, tempered now by a clarity that left the other tribes uneasy. They were respected, but only barely. For what greater dishonour is there than turning one's back on the goddess who had made them what they were? With Frail as their new matron, the Volker pulled even further away from the Dal Rita. Hidden among the snowy peaks, they focused on rebuilding their tribe and strengthening their numbers. The berserkers they had once been famed for became fewer and fewer, until all that was left was a fading name, half remembered and half feared. With the stag-father slain and the old bonds broken, Balaam led the swine towards a new path. He opened the tribe to the other clans of the Dal Rita and guided them to settle in the Mather mines. Following Galerna's path, the Sven clung to the old ways, their faith sustained by the stagfather's living presence within the unrealm of the hunt. They turned inward, shunning outsiders, and deepened their devotion to the blood-stained rites of their ancestors. Under Stronar's leadership, the Ulfr found new strength. He rebuilt the tribe and reunited them with the rest of the Dal Rita, restoring their place among the tribes of the forlorn swords. Under Dav Hanra's leadership, the Ulfr grew stronger but more isolated. The tribe and the Stone Wardens became one, bound by a new symbol of strength, a steady hand against the chaos beyond their borders. In your absence, the South unraveled, its leaders gone, its people left to fend for themselves. The keep still stands, but not as a beacon, only as a reminder of the help that never came. With your support, Galahad brought unity and discipline back to the South. The Dal Rita rebellion was contained, and for the first time in years, the people could breathe in peace. With One Eye and Captain Brandon working side by side, the South found a peace it hadn't known in years. The roads stayed open, the fields were guarded, and the people finally felt safe. No longer bound to Camelot or the Knights of the Round Table, it became a land ruled by its own people on its own terms. You awakened the giants, only to command their end, leaving no power behind for either side to claim. Without their strength, the balance held, but the divide between Camelot and the Dal Rita remained, wide, bitter, and far from settled. You awakened the giants and gave their strength to Camelot, ending the Dal Rita rebellion before it could ignite. In time, a new generation rose among the tribes, learning to coexist under Camelot's banner, no longer feared as savages, but respected as part of Avalon's future. You awakened the giants, and with them at their side, the Dal Rita conquered Camelot. As the capital fell, the customs of the tribes spread across Avalon. Not everyone welcomed them, but the change had already taken root. Ingwi led the Theud into the eternal sleep, honouring the path her people had chosen. The Theud were no longer seen in Avalon, their legacy left behind in the memories of those who once knew them. Ingwi turned away from the eternal sleep, choosing life over dreams. In time, she began to rebuild the Theud among the living, planting the first seeds of a new future for her scattered people. Killian served as quartermaster of the Horns of the South, until one night his thirst for blood drove him to murder a fellow keeper. He was caught in the act and brought to a swift end. After returning to Camelot, Killian lived quietly for a time. When he vanished, few asked questions. Unsettling rumours had always followed him, and most preferred not to remember. The men here stayed in Kuanact, but Yvain failed to rally the minds and hearts needed for his Grail quest. With no clear leaders and rising tension, both Kuanact and Camelot grew fragile, drifting toward division, with no one left to hold the line. Because of you, the men here remained and the Kuanact endured, not just as a place, but as a legacy of quiet defiance and hope. Lord Yvain was remembered as a hero who gathered the wise and set out in search of the Grail, while Kuanact stood as a peaceful haven amid the weirdness. Soon after you made your decision in the resurrection chamber, Denholm took the men here to Camelot, along with most of Kuanact's people. Yvain departed in silence to pursue the Grail and never returned, his absence barely noted as Kuanact faded into history. Soon after you made your decision in the resurrection chamber, Denholm took the men here to Camelot, along with most of Kuanact's people. Lord Yvain was remembered as a hero who gathered the wise and set out in search of the Grail. You chose to free the fore-dwellers, but captivity had broken their minds. They turned on their saviour and were slain. Without the song, the Stone Warden craft ended, and their legacy was lost with the death of the last of their order. You made a pact with the fore-dwellers, freeing them only once they agreed to leave behind their knowledge. One was lost to madness, but another fulfilled the promise, placing a stone woven with the song at the feet of the Stone Wardens. Through it, the craft survived into a new age. You placed self at the head of the children of Morrigan. Operating from the shadows, the Guild reshaped Avalon's politics through quiet influence and assassination, while the people lived unaware of the power that ruled them. You placed war at the head of the children of Morrigan. Under his leadership, the Guild abandoned secrecy, waging open campaigns of domination in Morrigan's name. Avalon's cities and strongholds fell one by one as faith and fear reshaped the land. You chose to dismantle the children of Morrigan. There were no more crows to carry out her will, for now. Morrigan withdrew into silence, patient as ever, waiting for the day when new souls would rise to serve her again. One Eye ruled the south, with the horns of the south at his side. Over time, the Dal Rita of the Fallen Swords rallied to his banner, forging a unified force. With the south secured, he stood in a strong position to launch future conquests across Avalon. One Eye ruled the south, with the horns of the south at his side. The Dal Rita of the Forlorn Swords remained divided, leaving the south strong but isolated. Without wider unity, his rule endured for a time, but the future beyond his leadership remained uncertain. Vetus and Anselm reached an agreement, but it was Vetus who held the real power. Under his influence, the Red Church tightened its grip on Kuanact, reshaped and strengthened, though not all were willing to accept the new order. You stood as her protector, and the Bee Queen believed you understood her purpose. But from the ruins of Brockmala, her brood now spreads unchecked, and the South must bear the weight of your promise. O Queen Cinnamon Sage never forgot the bond he shared with you. Proud of the path you chose, he built a small shop near your grave, and in quiet moments still spoke to you as he once did, a friend loyal beyond the bounds of life. Proud of her newfound ability to fly, Muriel returned to Tuathan to deliver her report. The fore-dwellers, seeing that she had survived and been treated with care, took it as a rare sign of hope, that perhaps, at last, humanity might be ready for dialogue. You accepted the mycelium's offer and let the spores consume Sagramor's body. Now the kingdom lies under fungal control, its people connected, obedient, and slowly fading into the roots that feed the spores. The captain led the south to independence, breaking all ties with Camelot. Under his rule, the horns of the south flourished. Merchants, pilgrims, and adventurers returned to the roads, and prosperity once again reached the far corners of the land. You swam beyond the breakers, where the sea stretched endless and empty. No boat, no shore, only the abyss below. Then the waters stirred, not with tide or wind, but with something vast and aware. A presence older than the gods, lurking where no light has ever reached. You caught a glimpse of shifting scales, of something impossibly vast. Then the water closed over you, and you were gone. You chose Defiance, slipping into the waves to reach the shore alone, avoiding Caradog and whatever plans he had for you and the king. But the watchful eyes of the Red Priests found you. Their boat cut through the water, and they seized you with unyielding strength. You fought, but even Arthur's power couldn't break their grip. This time, they didn't bother with a cell. They dragged you straight to the operating table, intent on tearing Arthur's essence from your weakened body. As the cold metal pressed against your skin, one thought consumed you. Was it worth it? To defy the will of fate? And your story ends here, with the rejection of the offer. Your body burns from the inside out as the fragment of King Arthur's soul fades away. The world around you remains unchanged, suspended in everlasting autumn. Arthur told you the truth. You are dying, but you stood up for what you thought was right. You made a difference. As you lie there, life ebbing away, you take one last look at the horns of the south. You may die, but your influence here will remain.